What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So we actually have some major news that has come out just today. We got the new CPI reading that came out this morning. We will touch on that. I'm going to address President Biden and his plan on lowering gas prices for a certain area of the United States. We're going to talk about climate change and a new Gallup poll that just was released yesterday. We're going to address student loan payments and also healthcare. Again, a lot of stuff that we're going to discuss in today's video. So let's get right down to it. First, the new CPI report. This indicates we have 8.5% inflation. Now, just so you know, even though 8.5% seems very high, this is year over year. We expected this. Now, month over month, we are just at 1.2%. Now, the big deal, the big factor is core inflation. Core inflation, we're taking out energy, we're taking out food, okay? Core inflation was just at 0.3%. So core inflation is actually down. This is what I said yesterday. If we see core inflation year over year looking at something like 6%, that's not good. That would be troubling. But it's sitting at just 0.3% month over month. Okay, so far off 6% year over year. Now, I want to read you some of the big changes from the past month that came in, right? And again, some of these were expected. Energy, the first one, was up 11%. Gas, up 18.3%. Electricity is up just 2.2%. Used cars and trucks actually went down by 3.8%. That's big. Okay, that means that we are starting to stabilize, at least with used cars and trucks. Shelter, this went up 0.5%. Now, the troubling news here, and I addressed this yesterday, is shelter actually makes up 1/3 of the CPI report. This will show that, and this is a sign that rents are increasing. Slowly, but they are increasing. And this is what many people expected, is that we're going to see rents. We're going to see them to start to pick up in different parts of the United States, in different little areas and pockets. So that's what we are seeing right now. So just understand that if we see inflation continue to run, chances are it's going to be due to shelter. That's going to be heavily weighted here. We also know food at home rose by 10%. And the reason food rose is because we are seeing more shortages. There's a shortage of food. There's a shortage of workers and transportation workers, which is causing it to cost more money. And obviously gas prices, that was a huge factor as well. We know meats, poultry, fish, and eggs, they went up combined 13.7%, and airline fees rose by 10.7% as well. But for airline fees, this shows that consumers are still spending money. They're still spending money on things that are not deemed necessary. An airline fee, right? We've seen businesses go from sending their workers all across the United States for meetings to now they're using Zoom more than ever before. So it's interesting, but things are changing. The CPI report today, even though some are saying 8.5%, very scary, 8.5% would be scary if this was core inflation. But just as a headline number, not so much. This is what we kind of expected. Now, we were expecting 8.4%, so 0.1% up is nothing to really worry about too much. At least I'm not too worried at this point. So we'll see what happens there, but that is what we know regarding inflation. Now, let's talk about how President Biden wants to put another plan in place to lower gas prices. Because his plan is actually to issue an emergency waiver to allow 15% ethanol blend to be sold between June 1st and September 15th. Now, normally this is prohibited because of concerns that it adds to smog and high temperatures, but this really is just impacting about 2,300 gas stations, according to reports, and it's going to happen in the Midwest and the South, particularly in Texas. But the Biden administration said that it should save drivers an average about 10 cents a gallon. The good news here is that there is also bipartisan support on this waiver. Now, President Biden can just issue a waiver. I don't think he has to go through Congress here, but the good news is, even if Congress were to try to fight this, I don't think they would, because there's really nothing to fight. There's bipartisan support here. They want to see this. So we'll see what happens there. But the good news is for people in the Midwest and the South, they will see at least some relief of about 10 cents a gallon. And it's only going to happen over the summer months. Now that we're talking about, gas prices, let's address climate change for a second. Because yesterday there was actually a new Gallup poll that was released, and I want to share what it says. And keep in mind that these provisions are within the President Biden's Build Back Better Act. Now, even though the Build Back Better Act is getting a name change and it's going to be reworked, just understand a lot of the stuff that was previously discussed is still going to be pushed. For instance, in the Gallup poll, 89% of Americans said that they favor providing tax credits to Americans who install clean energy systems like solar power in their homes. And let me know if you are in favor of any of these as well. 75% of Americans say they favor tax incentives to businesses to promote the use of wind, solar, and nuclear power. 71% of Americans favored setting higher fuel efficiency standards for cars, trucks, and buses. 62% of Americans favored establishing strict limits on the release of methane in the production of natural gas. And 61% of Americans favored providing tax credits to individuals who purchase electric vehicles. Now, just because the American people support a provision and they support something, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's not a guarantee. There's still a process, and many lawmakers at this time don't support everything that's in the Build Back Better Act. So even if you took all these different five different provisions, even if you put all these together, let's say one lawmaker supports providing tax credits for purchasing an electric vehicle, but they don't support setting higher fuel efficiency standards. Well, they may vote against it because they don't support the higher fuel efficiency standards, right? Now, again, this is just an example. I'm not saying somebody does that, but you get the idea. And that's why this is not a lock. It's not a done deal. There's still a lot of negotiations that have to happen. And my guess is, at least the expectation is, that we are going to see these negotiations kind of continue over the next couple of weeks while Congress is still on recess. So we will see. Now let's address student loan debt, because the White House says student loans will likely need to be paid back at some time. Now, President Biden did extend the student loan payment pause until it was supposed to just end on May 1st. It will actually end on August 31st of 2022. Now, many people expect that President Biden won't forgive student debt, but here's the big thing. They say that having borrowers pay back their debt during an election year would have been political suicide. So the expectation has always been President Biden was going to push back the payment pause, which he ultimately did. Now the expectation is the payments will be pushed back even further after the election, because August 31st is before the election. And many Democrats are pushing President Biden to either extend the payments one more time or fully cancel them. And again, having borrowers make a payment or payments right before the midterm elections, this would devastate Democrats. This would ultimately hurt them. And so that is the expectation at this time, is student loan debt will have to be paid back. The payments most likely will not come until sometime in 2023, but the payment pause will be extended at least one more time. So again, that's what we know at this time, but as always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back and share more. Now, something else that I want to address is what the White House is also trying to do, because the White House is planning on doing something to address the issues with the American health system and specifically medical debt. Now, these measures, and this is something that's been brought up by Vice President Kamala Harris, but these measures include holding medical providers and debt collectors accountable for harmful practices, reducing the role medical debt plays in determining whether Americans can access credit, forgiving medical debt for over 500,000 low-income veterans, and informing consumers of their rights. And I've talked about this over the past year, that a lot of consumers do not know their rights. That is a huge issue. Just not being informed is a huge problem. And it's not just with medical debt, it is with all debt. That a lot of consumers just do not understand their rights. And that's a huge problem. So having some of these things being dealt with and to help with medical debt, I think this is great. It should have been done years ago, but hey, maybe they're going to touch on it now. We'll see. Let's also get into some COVID-related news, because this isn't the greatest news, but it's very important. That Philadelphia is actually the first major U.S. city to reimpose their mask mandates. Now, part of the reason for this is because the city has seen cases of COVID rise by more than 50% in the past 10 days. So, people will be required to wear a mask indoors for the foreseeable future. But the reason why this is so important is because many health experts are currently saying, again, across the United States, that they are expecting a move like this from many major cities very soon. That they don't expect these major cities to wait until the last minute and then finally decide, okay, we have to go back to mask mandates. So they are expecting we will see something like this very soon. But as always, once I hear of the news or the updates of, okay, this city and that city are going to require masks, I promise I'll come back and fill you in on those updates as soon as we get them. So again, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.